Yeah, I think anytime you write a script, you have to figure out sort of the structure of the story you're trying to tell. In this case, it's like a heavy story, right? It's
Yeah.
very heavy subject matter. So the question was like, how much do we front load? How much do I how much do I give a reader? How much do I give an audience? And I guess as a writer, I'm always thinking about the reader.
What is your plan? I just need a minute to figure out what happens next.
You've been everything to everyone.
I carried her for 9 months. So why are you here? Jack. Jack!
It's not about Katie. It's about Jack and you. How do you restart?
Under your skin.
So you're a shrink, but in a vet form.
Well, yes, technically.
Hey, Matt, how's it going?
Hey, Jim, how are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself? Where are you at?
I'm in Burbank, California. How about you?
Oh, good spot. Chicago.
Oh, nice. I was just in Chicago.
Really?
Yes, I flew in on Saturday and flew out Sunday. How's that for a turnaround?
Oh, so you were literally there like this weekend, yeah?
I was just there. Yeah, the Grateful Dead was playing down at Wrigley Field, and I went to go see the film with some friends and family in Chicago who really wanted to go see it.
Wow. Yes, it was a packed weekend in the city. So, okay.
Wasn't it,
Oh, did you have a good time?
Oh, yeah. I love, I grew up, I spent like till 8th grade in Joliet, Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
So right outside. And yeah, I love that town. I'm a huge White Sox fan, so I just love that town. Bears fan, of course, just
There you go. Okay, the Bears were playing at home this weekend. Their home opener too.
yeah, it would have been fun to watch that. That's for sure.
Yeah. Oh wow. So you got. I saw in your bio for Joliet, but you're a Chicago sports fan. That makes you a Chicagoan. And that's.
I mean, it's you're all in when you're a kid. You know that. Yeah.
Yeah. No question. I grew up with that. Hey, White Sox are having a hell of a season so far. So that's.
Yeah. We're.
I got to ask you. You grew up in Joliet. How much did you hear about the Statesville prison? Oh, he's there. That's like the kind of the highlight of Joliet people always talk about.
It was always, especially from like way back when the Blues Brothers came out and there was Joliet Jake, was a character in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you always heard about the prison, but I mean, yeah, there were people in our neighborhood who worked there at the Stateville. So.
And now it's one of the top haunted houses in the state.
Is that right? Is that what it is?
Oh yeah, they turned the whole prison into a haunted house. So it's been on record like the last 5 years as the top haunted house in Illinois.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, I was there last year, and it's literally the remains of the prison are still there. They just like dress it up. It's kind of crazy.
Oh my God, that beautiful old sort of sandstone, facade too outside.
Yes. They literally just, I guess they left it abandoned or at some point, or I'm not sure what they do with it during the year, but come Halloween time, it's there, and they just like move in there. So
going through that.
It's fun. So, wow, I'm excited to talk to you. It's so cool. I got to see the movie. Okay, I had a friend come over to watch it together. I'm like, okay, let's have a fun Friday night.
Yeah.
And first, initially, we're talking through the movie, the beginning. I'm like, I don't know what the hell's going on here. I don't know how I feel about this. And the more I'm watching it, the more it's drawing me in as you drop these little nuggets constantly throughout. Oh, so by the time we're in like, the middle of it, I'm like, wow, this movie's completely what I never expected of it. And I was so into it. It was just crazy to track my emotions and kind of my thought process as it went on from the beginning. Confusion, like what? And then it's just like, oh, wow, whoa, this is, it was just, and I kept on thinking like, wow, the way you wrote this, like, what was the thought process to kind of leave it really obscure in the beginning and you're guessing along and then you throw these nuggets out there throughout and it opens up another, kind of truth or discovery throughout. How do you write such a thing? Because it's very, I would imagine, thought out and in a sense planned how you drop these things along the way.
Yeah, I think anytime you write a script, you have to figure out sort of the structure of the story you're trying to tell. In this case, it was like a heavy story, right?
Yeah.
Very heavy subject matter. So the question was like, how much do we front load? How much do I give a reader? How much do I give an audience? And I guess as a writer, I'm always thinking about the reader, and I want to keep them turning the page, whether it's a studio executive or an actor, director, I want them to keep turning that page. And, I feel like if somebody can read my script and get to the end and be like, wow, that was satisfying, then I think I've done my job, because then I think it can be translated into a film. And so I did, intentionally not try to overwhelm a reader with too much tragedy in the beginning. And I wanted to know the characters too, without knowing that about them, because I wanted you to wonder what happened to these people, what befell them, how did it happen, is there something more sinister, or even whatever it might be. It's just I like the stories that unfold a little bit slowly, and I think maybe it's a little bit more impactful.
Yeah. Because you wonder, like, we're used to, in a sense, with cinema being always kind of given clues, even with horror, the sound, the music's something's coming. But a movie like this, it's almost in reverse. You're thinking, how did these people get to this point? And you're kind of lusting and waiting to find out like what's going on. And that's the sort of thing where it had me more captivated and engaged, because I didn't get that all in the beginning. It's usually it would be like, oh, you get that from a star and like, this is how they ended up there. But it's working backwards in a lot of ways. And I thought that was the really interesting and compelling thing about this film, how it works your way backwards. And then kind of you get to the point of the current time when you start seeing the full picture.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think part of it too is like I was more interested in the aftermath of something than I was the tragedy itself, because I'm more interested in how we move past something, and how do we get past it? Can we even get past it? Right? Some loss, some tragedy, some events are too much that we can't move on. We can't get past it. And will this couple be able to remain a couple after what they've experienced? When we meet them, they're not a couple, right? They may be in the truest sense, but they're not together. And so how do we get them back together? Where do we get them? What are they going to have to get through to be able to be together, if they're to be together? So that's what I was really interested in,
And it felt true to life too, because things are complicated and messy, in life, and nothing's like one way. And what I appreciate about it was that no one person takes a tragedy the same way. They cope with it differently. And I thought that really highlighted how different people, because there's a general perception like, oh, you should be sad or you should be this. There's a general kind of perception, but that's not the reality, because different people cope and deal with things very differently. And I thought you really highlighted that. That was a big takeaway.
Oh, good. Yeah. And it's so true, right? I mean, anything I wanted to try and give some sort of authenticity to their loss, right? And, to be real and not to be, predictable and cliche in the presentation of it, right? I mean, look, we've all experienced loss in the last couple of years, right? It's just tough, loss of any semblance of normality, right? If nothing else.
Yeah.
And, it's been a shift, it's been a change. We're all trying to come to terms with it, what the new normal might be, I think that disruption and trying to get back to some sort of common experience is what this film is trying to do. Trying to explore, I'm not trying to dish out answers for sure, like you said, cope with loss or tragedy in their own way. Sadness is not the same for everybody. I always think of it as like an image of a jungle, right? You're going to take off and I'm going to take off. And if we both get to the same place at the end, we both come out the other side of the jungle, we're relieved we survived it, but you didn't follow the same path that I followed, right? We just through it. And it's fraught with missteps and misdirection, and you get lost, and that's the truth, That's I just wanted it to be true.
I was wondering, as I'm watching along, where did you envision these characters post final credits? Because it is open sort of to, and I felt like it was kind of a good way to leave things off, because life is unpredictable. You don't know what's kind of around the corner, right? And what happens. Where did you kind of envision when you were putting together a story, or did you not even kind of think about their future potentially, where this goes once we stop seeing the action in a sense?
Well, for me, I think the most important thing that had to happen for these two to even have a chance was that they had to both feel some chance for a future, right? They had to both see that there was a way forward. They don't, there's not a clear drawn path, but there's a chance for a way forward. And that's all I think we can all ever ask for, right? You and I certainly don't know the outcome of our day when we get up and we set out for our day. These two, I think in my mind, I have a greater appreciation for every moment they have together. That's the way moving forward. And I think that I like to think 5 years down the line, doing okay. That's what I would say. They were doing fine. I think, like I said, we've all experienced some measure of loss. And I think usually sort of knocks us on our ass a little bit, makes us take a assessment of what we have in our life,
Yeah.
And that's never a bad thing. It's never a bad thing.
It's a perspective, it's a perspective changer, and it makes you think about, it kind of, even though it's unimaginable to kind of think of scenarios that you'd never want to be faced with that, but it's the reality. It happens to people, on many occasions, unfortunately. And you kind of think like, how would you deal with it? How would I deal with it individually? It's something you can't even fathom. It's kind of like a sense also when it comes to kids, it's like, when you're a first time parent, like, how do you raise kids? Like, you don't have a guide map, others around you have done it, but you are going through it and you will, not know what to do in certain moments. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I always imagine these two as being, they were a couple who were told, like, unfortunately, it doesn't look like you guys are ever going to have kids. And they had become okay with that. They were sort of like, they had a good life, right? She is an assistant grocery store manager, him teaching art. They both lived in a small town. They were happy with their life when nature surprised them with this gift, this child, and suddenly they're parents. And then, in my mind, for him, it was like, it was not a dream realized, like a purpose that he never even knew he had realized. Like, this is what I was born to do. I was born to be a dad, and then that's gone, and it's taken.
Yeah.
And so then what are you? And so that was the hopelessness and the despair that I think he was trying to get back or get around, and didn't see a path forward. And
I like the fact too, later in that playground scene, kind of outside, it really showed his. You can talk about some, but then when you kind of see it, like, oh, he enjoys kids, like it lights him up, even in the worst of circumstances. I really like that scene because it kind of showed what, his other side of how much joy kids bring to him. And I thought that was kind of an important scene in the film. So it gives you a perspective once again. One thing I did find curious too, it's like the focus is on these two individuals, but there wasn't much. It was pretty ambiguous how you did it, and I wanted to know if that was all kind of purposely orchestrated. You don't know much about the child, what kind of happened to it, how old was it? I mean, it's very kind of mysterious in a sense. That's, I guess, the only thing that sort of we don't get the answers to. You kind of envision, what happened to child, how old was it? These sort of questions. Tell me your approach to that, to kind of leaving that aspect about the child very ambiguous and not really revealing much.
Yeah, there was a scene that got cut too, where she actually expressed those feelings too. She's like, I was still trying to figure out, who she was going to look like, whose smile she was going to have, whose sense of humor, who was she going to be intelligent? You're like, when you look at a child, when especially an infant, and it's kind of a blank slate, you're imagining, you're projecting all these ideas and onto this child, the things they could be and what they could be. And you see a little bit of that in the beginning of the movie, right? Where You know, she's going to be a butcher, vegan restaurants, and she's going to be a podiatrist. You know, that's what parents do. They project these futures on their children. And so I think for me, it was important to leave it ambiguous because it wasn't, she was still the idea of a person in the long run.
Not fully developed in that sense where, yeah, I see what you mean now.
Yeah. So it was, it was, you know, it was a huge loss, you know, because you're not taking away the physical presence, you're dashing everything you were trying to think and imagine and dream that they could be.
So yeah, if you had basically kind of revealed the age and kind of what exactly happened, because we know, you know, it's he has so much guilt with it, then it would have started opening up kind of that answers, you know, to their potential as a viewer, to the imagination of what they saw in the child. And then as a viewer, you'd get a lot that, yeah, I can see exactly what you meant by that, by leaving that open-ended, not focusing much on that, because we're living through these characters in a sense, you know, and their vision of that child.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, it is sort of, children are like, you know, we even write songs, you know, about children or our future. We're always thinking of them as these future creatures, right? Not there yet, but your future, and we're going to do everything for your future. And let's think of our children's future, you know. So yeah, it's tough when the future's snatched away before it even happens, right?
Right. No, that's an interesting perspective and take too, how you put it. You know, the birds here, so much symbolic meaning throughout. I was wondering, is like, was there ever a different choice beside the starling bird? Because that's even in the title in a sense, but how they play a kind of crucial role of like bringing things together. I think they're like the vessel, especially to Melissa's character, to getting to the vet and all these sort of things, and kind of dealing with her own ways of, you know, coping. I thought it was a very important character in the film, but was there a different choice of it being some different animal or species, or even a different thing besides a bird, or was that something you set out with from the beginning you wanted to make?
No, I definitely set out from the beginning, and actually it was a starling. You know, I just think they're interesting creatures too. I think they're a unique type of bird, you know, a very invasive bird and a very territorial bird. They're very much survivors, you know, which I think is interesting about them. Not to mention that they're kind of a little bit magical in the way that they create those clouds, you know, when you see them. They call those murmurations of starlings. But I think their qualities as survivors is what I found really intriguing. And, you know,
and providers too, right? I mean, in so many ways too, like, even it's, yeah, there's some description of it in the film when they're kind of looking up the meaning of them, but yeah, they're very unique. I had not known that. So I kind of learned through watching the film, and then I was kind of curious to, you know, afterwards to Google about them, but they have different sort of qualities, very maternal in a sense, right?
They do, and they are very much nurturers, you know. And I think, you know, in this film, you know, they're symbolic of sort of the natural world, the being sort of pecked on and pecked on and pecked on, and I think it also at the same time, as survivalists, you know, they just persist, they just go on, and the refusal to quit is kind of where Lily has to be, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
when you were putting this script together, did you ever envision this cast? I mean, I thought it was a great mixture of actors, even from different realms. I mean, Chris and Melissa have the comedy background, but it's very grounded performance too, in that way. And Melissa, we've seen her over the last few years completely go from just like straight up comedy to very dramatic roles to show a different side of her skill set for sure. Did you envision them before? Did you had anyone else in mind? Because I thought it came out really well. Like I almost can't see anyone else playing these certain roles.
I really feel fortunate that they got the cast they did. I'll tell you that much. I felt like it's kind of a dream cast in a lot of ways, you know. And this script has been around for a little while, you know, and and there have been some interesting names attached in the past, but to have it come to life like this was something sort of beyond my wildest dreams, to be quite honest with you. Once Melissa was in, getting Kevin to do it is no easy task. He doesn't do a lot of stuff. He joked that his nickname is Kevin Decline. And
yeah, I haven't seen him in a while too, so that was really kind of cool to see him.
yeah, I think he, lives a pretty quiet life, and
Yeah.
decided to play this character. He actually went and spent time with a real vet to watch some real procedures get done. It's a little bit of research for his character, and I thought he really was a wonderful embodiment of that guy.
Mm-hmm.
So no, I really couldn't imagine anything quite so good.
And when you have this kind of cast, like you certainly have an idea and script out there. When you're on set, in a sense, how much you let them create too, and improvise certain things, like it just kind of let them create their world, even with your words and on it.
Yeah, obviously, it's funny, when you're a writer, you turn this thing over to the director, right? And
Yeah.
so when it gets to set, it really becomes a director's film. And so it is incumbent upon them, I think, to allow the actors to improvise. And I was lucky enough to watch them sort of improvise a few scenes, especially Kevin Kline. Like he would, they do 3 different setups, say, for a scene, and
Mhm.
he would do 3 different ways, on his close up one way, on his wide another way. So it was kind of fun. He was saying the same thing, same idea, but it was just in different ways. And like even Melissa and the way she interacted with the exterminator,
Yes, that was a really fun scene, actually. See, I like this so much because there's natural comedy in tragedy. There's also comedy in a weird way, by just interactions, and not forced comedy. It just kind of nature, natural comedy that brings upon in certain situations. I felt this movie really blended it nicely, especially a scene like that,
Yeah, no, she was really funny in that scene,
Mm-hmm.
on herself to kind of, 400 billion. That's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah.
I thought that was hilarious. Yeah, there were some times where it was hard not to laugh, because the last thing you want to do is ruin a take with your laughter watching.
Right, being you and everyone looks at you, it's like, oh, it's the writer,
Yeah, that would have been they're so talented,
I think you really lucked out in that. And it seems like you're very happy with how the film came out and how it was portrayed, the story.
Yeah, it's funny, they shot the entire script. It came out to be about 2 hours and 42 minutes long. The cut.
Oh, wow.
So they had to take a full hour out of it. So my only regret, if you will, is that, it was too much, and so some storylines were cut. I agree with you on cutting them, but I still miss them, so
Mm-hmm.
it's different. And the focus is certainly on Melissa and Chris in this film. There were some things that had to be cut that I wish we could all see someday.
As a writer, yeah, it's kind of your thing. You like to, for you, especially, all these scenes have a meaning. But then when you're a director and you have a studio kind of like, hey, we need to cut it because we can't have, a 3-hour film. That's where deleted scenes come in. I think sometimes on the Blu-rays and the cool stuff like that.
There needs to be an alien invasion for that thing to sustain 2 hours and 42 minutes. More than Starlings, there need to be spaceships. You know what I mean?
Yep, totally. I kind of want to leave it off on ending things. I know we're short on time and there's like tons of talk about, so many questions about the film in general, but I'm curious, just reading your bio, you've lived in so many different places around the world and have so many life experiences. Does that kind of molded you, being on different, in a sense, continents, growing up in so many different places throughout your life? Did that kind of mold you into your creative self? Because I always feel like a creative needs to live a full and fulfilling life, or a life with various, things that you explore and get to see. Did you think your life experience of kind of being all over the world, in a sense, contributed to you as a writer?
I'd like to think so.
Mhm.
So sometimes it's hard to stand outside of yourself, and truly assess that. But I find it hard to believe that some of the things I've seen, and some of the people that I've met haven't left or a mark on me and who I am and my personality, my character.
Mhm.
You know, I find that the more we think we're different, the more we're really the same in a lot of ways. It's really not that much difference from, you know, especially a story like this, a Starling, you know, where it tries to, I think it's a pretty universal experience. And in other words, is what I'm trying to say. And one of the great things about it being on Netflix is it's going to be, I think, in 125 countries coming out.
Wow.
So it's good because I have a feeling that, you know, there's going to be, I think people can identify with these characters and that shared experience. And I think that's one of the discoveries I've made by living overseas and getting a chance to, when you live overseas rather than visit, you really kind of get to settle in, right? You learn the culture, the language,
Right.
the people, and you get to meet the people and you get to know the people. And yeah, I think that has changed my character quite a bit, you know, and I hope so. Anyway.
Well, keep on putting it into your work. I'm certain it has. You know, you're precise. Hey, I saw you have a thriller coming out next, so I'm excited to see that. It's got also another great cast, so you're lucking out so far.
Yeah, well, I hope, you know, we'll see. I'm right there with you. I'm looking forward to that one as well.
Yeah, so that looks good from what I just briefly saw. I'm like, okay, I'm in for that one too. But so I have to say, really, the movie surprised me in a really good way. You know, I just thought it was a really creative script, and you know, it's kind of a good feeling when you kind of are confused, like, am I going to watch this? And then you just like, wow, at the end of it, like, what an experience this was. And I felt that about this movie. So really good job.
I'm glad. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Looking forward to the next one and then talking to you about that one. As you know already now, I'm going to have a lot of questions. So
We'll get it done. We'll do it.
Sounds good, Matt. Thank you so much for taking the time. And I hope people check it out. Like you said, 125 countries plus, you know, that'll be cool to have people from different parts of the world check it out and, you know, take it in.
I appreciate it.
Got it. Talk soon, Matt.
Bye-bye.